During our beginning as a species, we have always had different disputes throughout history, remarkable today. This due to the aggressiveness we have, behavior that's still present in our species. Many of the disputes that have taken place are usually due to difference of thought, many of which set a pattern that changed much of the history in the world, such as those that the Trojans had, different indigenous groups, and without going so far, the First World War and the Second World War. In many of these fights, the winner was dictated from who could subdue his opponent, either using a formidable strategy that he had a large army than his enemy, or what was said in this work, they had a superior armament. Weapons have been around for a long time since they have conceptualized. Since any object that could cause damage to other could be considered a weapon, the term weapon comes from the Latin word arma, plural of armum, which is related to the word armus, which means arm. The first known weapons consist of simple stones and sticks, which they used to hunt other animals and thus be able to feed. These weapons were much more rustic if we compare them with those that we currently have. As time went by little, humanity began to improve as well as creating and perfecting different types of weapons, so that of course they were easier to use and they did much more damage. A clear evolution that we can see is that thousands of years later, more developed weapons began to appear, such as arrowheads, wooden spears, stone knives. A key point was the use of different metals, which allowed to create swords, spears, and arrows, weapons that were clearly more harmful against other living beings. Another key point was the discovery and use of gunpowder, which allowed the use of firearms, such as pistols or rifles. Currently, the most powerful weapon now are the nuclear bombs, which can cause great destruction in a country, with just one bomb and which can be easily used by anyone. Something that has remained as such is that for a weapon to be used, a person has to operate it so that it can do some damage. That is until the appearance of smart weapons. Some time ago, the creation of artificial intelligence began, which seeks to allow machines and robots to have their own mind formed based on the main job as well as programming. End quotes. The ideas are already showing enough of these fruits, although there is still a long way to go before it can be perfect. Despite this, it began to look for a way to implement artificial intelligence in the current weapons so that it can be activated by itself whenever the situation is necessary, whether it detects an attack and needs to counterattack or defend itself, from parameters that the machine operator will define. Several countries have already been implementing artificial intelligence on their weapons. Existing samples such as Russia, which since 2017 have been working on missiles guided by artificial intelligence, as well as the United States that since 2014 is investing in the defense of the country using fully automated ships programmed for combat. It will imply that in a few years, various weapons will be easily obtained unimaginable destructive power, and a race has been made to see who is the fastest to achieve it. Some countries had seen this as a bad idea in the medium term because artificial intelligence still lags years before it had been perfect. It is curious how, like Albert Einstein and his scientific discovery that impact the scientific area, it could be easily become a weapon against society. It really remains to see what happens in the future, as well as know the weapons will evolve.